Waldyr is the best epic hero associated with a starting faction in Call of Dragons. And if you've been following my guidance, you started with League of Order, which means just like me, you've got a lot of skills on this dude because you've been getting extra tokens for Waldyr. So stick around in this video for the things you need to know. Which skills should be a priority, what talents should you choose, and who should you pair them with, even which artifact do you select. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and I have been making guides about all of the heroes in Call of Dragons, so if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and honor my commitment to getting you the best information possible by tossing a like on the video. Today, we've got to talk all about Waldyr because I recommended that you pick up this hero and people were like, okay Chisgule, but give me a dedicated guide, man. I need more details. So here we are with the additional details. Please do use the timestamps, by the way, in the description if you want to jump to any one part of this video. Let's start with the skills. What makes Waldyr the best choice for your starting faction? And here it is, man. On the active skill, deal hero skill damage to the target and 2 nearby legions. It's area of effect damage, baby. And inflict gloom, reducing their attack by 20% for 2 seconds. Now, this is very powerful, but we're not done, because when you expertise him, and you should, you deal hero skill damage to the target and 3 nearby legions. You are hitting 4 things in total for 700 damage factor. And you inflict gloom and freeze on them, reducing their attack by 20% and their march speed by 20% for 3 seconds. Wow. So not only is the debuff have more effects associated with it, it lasts longer, and you're doing more damage. And let me point out something that more advanced players in this game will come to understand, and as a new player, let me explain this a little bit. Often, area of effect damage in games made by Lilith, Farlight, the developer of this game, reduce in effectiveness based on hitting more targets. The more things you hit, the less damage you deal to each target. It's still more total damage, but all that to say, this skill doesn't say that it deals less damage when you're hitting more things. So if this is just doing more damage for more targets with no downside at all, that's insane. That is great damage, and you're applying debuffs, which means if you are a free-to-play player with very little tech at the start of the game, great news for you. Your 20% attack reduction and 20% march speed reduction is just as effective as a whale doing the exact same thing. So I really like heroes that have utility when you are a lower spender into the game. Second skill here. Magic units in his Legion gain 10% magic attack and 10% hit points. In case it wasn't clear, you're using a magic unit in this Legion. From there, Waldyr deals 15% hero skill damage. So ideally, you pair him with someone who does lots of skill damage to take advantage of the fact that he is boosting skill damage. And then the last skill makes it so that when Waldyr takes hero skill damage, his Legion gets a shield that can absorb a large amount of damage. That is an upwards of a 600 factor shield, and that effect is so strong it only can trigger once every 20 seconds. But there's no percent chance to trigger on this, so I think the first time you take skill damage, it looks like you're just guaranteed the shield every 20 seconds, which is crazy. So Waldyr is an insane hero for a number of reasons. He has area of effect damage, he has debuffs, he also has all skills relevant for fighting other players. Now that might sound a little weird to someone who's newer to this genre of game, but normally a hero doesn't have all their skills relevant for fighting other players. Like Krieg over here, he's got an engineering skill right over here, not at all relevant if you were fighting another player. Or if you wanted to use Bakar in the field, he has a garrison skill. Well, the garrison skill is not at all relevant in the open field. So Waldyr is so nuts because every single one of his skills is relevant in the open field. And if you followed my guidance and you picked League of Order at the start, congratulations. This is the only starting hero that has all skills relevant in the open field for battling other players. This is a big deal. Gwanwyn, one of the other starting heroes here, second skill has peacekeeping. It's not relevant to fighting other players. Now, this also means that Waldyr has better talent tree options. He's got magic, he's got PvP, and he's got skills. So again, congratulations on picking League of Order and working on this hero. He is very good. Now, let's talk about the talent builds. And I have 2 builds that I want to share with you. And One of these builds, the first one I'm going to share with you, it's a little experimental, but I think you'll see why I'm going this route. And I'm calling it the Mad Lad Rage build, okay? You know, you accumulate a lot of rage, you're mad lad, we're just going with it, all right? It's corny, but it's the Mad Lad Rage build. And if you've been following my videos from Rise of Kingdoms, which is another game in this genre made by the same developers, you know that the more rage you generate, the better it is to generate more rage. Okay, it basically makes it so your skill cycles go really, really, really fast. So once you start to double down on mechanics that give you rage when you generate rage or use skills, you're in a really, really good spot. So let me show you this Mad Lad build, okay? Let's start with the skills tree. You're going to take attack because you have to. From here, you're going to take intimidation, deal more hero skill damage. I mean, that's a win. That's on plan with Waldyr, right? He already is about dealing hero skill damage. Then you're going to take High Spirits, 10% chance when you launch a normal attack to generate 50 rage. This is great because it means you start your skill cycle sooner. And then we're going to take Spirit of Rage. So you're going to be generating rage toward your active skills, and then boom, every active skill, which happens for your primary commander, and then your secondary commander, your deputy, each of those should generate another 20 rage for you. So you're building up lots of rage. This is the first part of the build. The second part of the build goes for even more rage. We're going to go up into the PvP tree now. We're going to start by taking overall attack because you have to, and then we go to overall speed. I love March speed for battling other players. This is a hero who's designed to battle other players, and if you get caught out, the only thing that can save you sometimes is March speed. So I love this choice to get some March speed here. From there, we're taking High Spirits again. Now, we reached out to support and found out that these two abilities are superimposed on each other. That's what they said. In other words, I'm pretty sure they stack, okay? So even though they are named the same thing, you have yet another way to generate 50 rage from a normal attack. That's a big deal. It might be a 10% chance to do 100 or a 20% chance to generate 50. I don't know how they superimpose yet. I haven't had a chance to test it. But either way, since it should stack, you want as much rage as possible because generating more rage means you use more active skills. More active skills means you generate more rage, and now your engine is really firing off on all cylinders. From there, there just isn't really a great choice here. You could either take Army of Valor, which I like because it's proactive, increases the damage dealt by your Legion while in battle by 1% every 10 seconds, maximum of 3%. I don't like this very much. 3% all damage, just like whatever. And then Luck of the Draw here, I don't like. When your Legion launches a counterattack, they have a chance to reduce all damage taken. This is not proactive. I prefer a proactive ability. You should always be targeting somebody unless you're about to get wrecked, and then it doesn't matter, man. Like, reducing your damage a teeny tiny amount is going to be irrelevant. So take the proactive Army of Valor. Now, to complete the Mad Lad build, that's right, we're going into the magic tree. You heard it correctly here. I told you it was a Mad Lad. I'm crazy. We've lost our mind. We're not actually going to go to the end of any of these trees. And I'll talk about the talents and explain why. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, I guess those aren't as good for this hero as I would have thought. So you get some health here at the start. Then you generate, that's right, even more rage, baby. When casting rage skills, your Legion has a 25% chance to gain some amount of rage. I think it goes up to 75 if I'm not mistaken. So now you're getting the 20 rage over here and a chance to get even more rage from Foresight. So now your full range engine is just firing completely here. Double on High Spirits, and you've got Spirit of Rage, and you've got Foresight. From there, you take one final talent, Intimidation. Your Legion deals more hero skill damage. That's on plan. Waldyr boosts hero skill damage. You should be trying to do that. And your final talent choice will depend on your pairing. If you do another hero that does area of effect damage, you want Energy Boost. 8% chance to deal, or to hit an extra target when rage skills damage multiple targets, okay? So because your rage skill on Waldyr is area of effect damage, this is an 8% chance to pick another target. So that's great for a group fight. And if you pair with someone like Lilia, which we're going to talk about, boom, you're hitting another target. That's great for a group fight. So I like this in part because we're going for a lot of rage, which means you fire off more skills, which means you get more chances to actually use the energy boost here. Now, that said, if you're pairing with a single target damage hero, and we'll talk about those choices in just a minute, then Magic Maelstrom would be a fine choice. This makes it so that your Legion will periodically inflict, or rather gain, a defense mitigation. So basically mitigate 10% of the target's defense for 5 seconds, but that only triggers once every 30. So I think it's fine, but I would rather go for the energy boost personally, and ideally pair with someone who does nice area of effect damage. Now that is the Mad Lad build, and I'll have that flash up on the screen. Also, the foundation talents you can already see on the screen the entire time here. We took the March speed, we took the health. I don't even think those are very controversial, which is why we didn't really talk about them much. But from here, let's talk about an alternate build, where you're going to do the same thing in the magic tree. You're going to get energy boost. You're going to do the same thing in the skills tree going to Spirit of Rage. But now it's like, okay, bro, let's actually finish out one of these trees and see if we like it more. Now, personally, I don't like the magic tree for this. Iconoclasm makes it so when your Legion is composed entirely of magic units, you deal more hero skill damage for 10 seconds every time you gain a buff. Well, Waldyr is not really buffing himself that much. Maybe the shield counts as a buff on his 4th skill, but he's not buffing, so this is not where we want to be. And then Elemental Boost also doesn't excite me. If your Legion consists of entirely magic units, they gain Vigor when casting rage skills, increasing their hit points by 15%. I mean, hit points are good, but it's like, he's a mage, he's here to do damage and slow the enemies, so it's just like not on plan, I felt. Also, if we look in the control, or rather, sorry, the PvP tree, when casting rage skills, your Legion gains Vigor, again, increasing your hit points. Like, I just don't care about that. Also, Breach Blade, when your Legion launches a normal attack, they inflict defense break. Now, that's actually a useful skill. That is a good debuff, and it is welcomed. And I think you could try to run a build going into the PvP tree. But what I'm instead going to do is recommend a build going into the skills tree. If you were to go into the skills tree, you'd take concentration. Now, I just finished saying you're not about being tanky because you're a mage, but because we're all in on the generate rage plan, I really think it's a good idea to take this, which is going to give you a defense boost every time you cast a rage skill for 2 seconds. Now, the way this should work is your primary commander uses their active skill. For the next 2 seconds, you have defense. That will include a second of downtime, and then your secondary commander, your deputy, uses their active skill, and it will reactivate concentration. So this is actually 4 seconds in a row of a defense boost, which I think is pretty good given how much rage you're generating, and it was better than the other options I thought you had available here. Now, from there, I didn't see anything too exciting here, so we went with Focus for damage, and then also Raging Tide. Those will give you a little bit more damage boost, and finally, we take Caged Animal. Every time your Legion casts a rage skill, they deal 0.5% more hero skill damage, and, you know, I suppose if you're using epics and you're fully free to play, you might prefer Thirst for Blood, maybe, but the stacking possibilities on Caged Animal are really good. If you're using any legendary heroes, don't go with Thirst for Blood. This is especially uninteresting, given how much, like, dude, he does so much area of effect damage. Unless Thirst for Blood actually hits all 4 targets that get hit by the AoE, which I don't think that it does, then this would be interesting, but I just don't think it is. So we go Caged Animal. Now, I'll put that build up on the screen, just so you can get a look at that, and you can see the build in its entirety. Take a picture of it if you need it. If you did want to go into the PvP tree, like I was describing earlier, you could drop the skills portion that we were talking about earlier entirely. And I know that's a little weird because it generates a lot of rage, but you got to drop something. So at that point, you're in the magic tree in order to get energy boost. You do the PvP tree that we talked about in the first build, okay, going up to Army of Valor. And then from there, you have some interesting choices. You can either increase your Legion capacity, or personally, I really like this one right over here. Overall speed. Just be able to maneuver the field, okay? Your next choice is going to make it so that when your Legion intercepts an enemy, well, you're not intercepting as a mage, so that's no good. And dealing more damage, I mean, hey, I'm into it. It's pretty good. But at that point, I think you may as well take Avoidance. More speed, baby. Your Legion gains haste when taking skill damage, increasing their march speed. I think you're pretty much dead if you're taking skill damage, but let's just move in on the escape plan here, and your Legion also takes less damage when marching is a fine choice. I don't think you want this. Grants healing when you defeat an enemy Legion. You're not going to be defeating that many enemy Legions, okay? When your Legion's in the field and your unit count is less than 50%, you do more damage. I mean, look, let's just go with the march speed, baby. I think that would be a fine plan. So every single point here is March speed, and then you go for utility. Boom. When your Legion launches that normal attack in the field, they inflict the defense break. And that reduces the defense of the enemy. And the reason I think this is good, and the reason, by the way, the developers limit this effect to once every 30 seconds, is that defense reductions and health reductions onto an enemy are very, very powerful. Think about the amount of scale that this has. Every single one of your allies that hits that enemy gets the benefit of this debuff. That's a big deal. That's why this is powerful. So in some ways, I like this more than the skills tree, but it's just different. Like if you find yourself wishing you could move faster, then you could go into this PvP build we just talked about, going for all that March speed and the defense break, and I think that's really cool. If you wanted the slight defense boost, the extra damage boost, you can go into the skill tree, and I think that's also fine. But a big part of what you ultimately choose here is going to depend on who you pair with. And that is really interesting for Waldyr. And I think there's some obvious choices we need to talk about. One of those choices is with Velen. Now, I think Velen primary will be better for the PvP and control tree. I talked about that actually recently in my video with Alwyn. I'll have a card in the end screen for that. You're going to want to see it. I think Alwyn is probably the best player versus player free-to-play hero because of PvP control. I think that's so strong, and you heard that here first. But if we look at the sort of logical mage pairings here, yes, Velen is a great pair. He also does area of effect damage. He also does a slow. I think, again, I would probably make Velen the primary, but the two of them together seem really amazing. The damage route, instead of the control route, will be to use Lilia. You could use her as the secondary if you prefer the talent on Waldyr, and I personally think I do. Although people may be more likely to target epics, so in that regard, choosing a legendary as the primary can be advantageous. Lilia primary would have more of a damage orientation with her talents, but Waldyr can fully emulate that if you want to. So because he also has magic and skills tree, you could fully emulate a Lilia build. So these two paired together are really, really great. Now this is where we go a little off the rails though and talk about some alternate pairings. One of those is again with Alwyn, and it's not really that off the rails with Alwyn. I mean, I would actually use him as the primary, and you're focused more on single target damage and debuffing, but the two are outstanding together. You really leverage the debuff synergy with Alwyn and Waldyr, and that is what makes them work. Another alternative that is less obvious is to use an Atheist secondary. This gives you all of the talents that you already had and that we talked about on Waldyr, but Atheist is very interesting. He cares about flying units, but not that much. He'll do single target damage, so you'll need to adjust your build in order to account for his doing single target damage over here. But also, when launching a normal attack, you generate more rage. So if you went with that Mad Lad rage build that I was talking about earlier, I mean, here is yet another way to generate rage, which seems good. You also get a hit point boost, and if you have flying units, you increase your healing. Well, you're not taking that much healing anyways, so if you're not using flying units, who cares, man? The Legion also gains March speed of 20%, and I love this for PvP, man. I love this. I think this Waldyr Atheist combo is probably going to be slept on. It's just going to be way better than people realize, and then they start using it. I just think it seems really good. And then you take less damage. You take 10% less damage. Hello? That's good. And then, if all that wasn't enough, the expertise makes it so you have a 30% chance to grant healing when attacked. So Waldyr will be doing shields, Atheist will be healing you a little bit and making you move fast and generate more rage. That seems amazing. And if you are going, by the way, with the old League of Order, which I have been advising, your Celestial is a flying magic unit, and you could use these with Waldyr if you wanted. And then you get the Waldyr Atheist full synergy of having a flying unit, which is pretty damn good. But we are not done. There is more that you can do. I will mention that you could pair with Thea. I don't think the synergy is all that great because she is going to be shielding, and I don't know if Waldyr shields will stack with Thea shields. I just don't have the answer for that. Indus is also a really interesting question. It will take a long time to ultimately expertise your Indus, but you could work on that consistently. And Indus is going to do a lot of debuffs, which is pretty cool. She also does some healing. She gives you some tankiness. I think she's fine. I don't know if I'd say she's amazing. And then also Pan, in terms of this pairing. This is healing, so I really don't think there's a lot of synergy here, but there is the sort of long-range factor here that they both benefit from. They both can do very far attacks, which is important. A little bit of tankiness here and skill damage taken reduction. I don't think that any of these heroes we're talking about, though, Pan or Thea, really makes sense because Waldyr is boosting skill damage, right? So although they are technically heroes that work at range, I just don't think that's where it's at. You want another hero doing skill damage, which is why we talked about all those heroes we covered earlier. The final option, right, is the Eliana. And this is your, like, super free-to-play or low spender, and you're, out of stamina on some of your other heroes or whatever. You could go with Eliana. This shielding will be fine. She has magic factor, and she's just kind of tanky. She's also a peacekeeper, but whatever. And I think this is fine, but not optimal. All right. So if you stick to the mages as your pairings for Waldyr, I think you're in great shape. Now, when it comes to the artifacts, however, you have several cool options. We make our way over to the artifacts section. At the epic tier, the obvious choice is the magic bomb. You get magic unit attack. It's got a really nice effect. This is probably your best epic quality choice. And that's really not very much debated. I mean, Magic Bomb is kind of where it's at. If you had a legendary, I think the best option would be the Phoenix Eye, and the second best option would be the Tear of Arbin. So the Phoenix Eye is the damage route, Tear of Arbin is the utility route, and I think the utility route's pretty good, by the way, if you're free to play, because, damage factors, I don't know if it works this way for artifacts, but they tend to scale up based on your attack stat, and your research could influence that, maybe. Again, I don't know how this works for artifacts, but the healing factor should be very straightforward, and it's super supportive. I have this, and I love it, man. It is freaking outstanding. Those are probably your best picks. Of course, there are other things that you could do, based on how you want to play, like a freezing ring, for example. Magic unit, defense, legion, hit points, that would also be fine. But that number one most common choice for most people using Waldyr is just got to be the Magic Bomb. It's great, man. It's a great artifact. Don't be shy about moving it from hero to hero, depending on which ones you're actually fighting with actively at any one moment in time. It's not that difficult to move one item from one hero to another. If you've been playing a lot of Rise of Kingdoms, which is the predecessor to this game, then you used to have to move, 8 pieces of equipment and 4 armaments, and it's just a real pain. None of that pain is here, okay? So Waldyr, really outstanding. If you were working on his skills incrementally, does it really matter which skills you unlock first? I think this second skill is really good to do first. Go to 5-5, max the first 2 skills. The reason I say that is that this does not scale in a linear way. It goes up by 1%, then it goes up by 2%, 2%, 2%. So the, last 3 skills onto this are actually disproportionately good. Also, I would then max the second skill. You go up by 2%, 2%, 3%, 3%. So the second skill also goes up in a disproportionate way. The last skill I would unlock, only after you max the first 3, is going to be the shield over here. And, you could just unlock it, and you get the 200 shield factor. And if you were going to fight, like if I was fighting today, I would unlock it immediately. I would probably use a few universals just to finish this last skill, but I would unlock that last skill immediately if I had a fight today and say, whatever, it's not perfect, but we're going with it because it's time to fight. And that is how I would use your Waldyr. If you have any other thoughts or comments about this particular hero, if there is honestly anything that I missed, definitely let me know down below in the comments. I'm very eager for that. And if you're looking for more information, for example, the All-Win guide I was describing, where I'm saying, man, like, he is probably your best free-to-play epic. Card will be in the end screen for that. And if you want just an overall guide around which heroes I think players should be investing in, whether you're free to play, mid spend, or high spend, card will be in the end screen for that video as well.